Hey there! Hi, Xander and Kate and Bennett. Welcome to the third chapter of Catwings. This is the chapter where the four little kitties have found a new home in the woods, and they're a little nervous that it might be dangerous, or it might be a really nice place. They're not sure. And Calvin's a little bit nervous too. Calvin is always a little nervous about things that might be dangerous, like wind or loud noises or doorways or who knows. It's always a little bit scary to try new things. Even new furniture can be scary, can't it, Calvin? Yeah. But he's willing to give it a try because he's tried some new things before and they turned out not to be too scary after all. So he wants to listen and find out what happens next. So let's go ahead and listen to the third chapter of Catwings, okay?
Absolutely unfair, the thrush cried. Unjust, the finch agreed. Intolerable, yelled the blue jay. I don't see why, a mouse said. You've always had wings. Now they do. What's unfair about that? The fish in the creek said nothing. Fish never do. Few people know what fish think about injustice or anything else. I was bringing a twig to the nest just this morning, and a cat flew down. A cat flew down from the top of the home oak and grinned at me in mid-air, the thrush said, and all the other songbirds cried, Shocking! Unheard of! Not allowed! You could try tunnels, said the mouse, and trotted off. The birds had to learn to get along with the flying tabbies. Most of the birds, in fact, were more frightened and outraged than really endangered, since they were far better flyers than Roger, Thelma, Harriet, and James. The birds never got their wings tangled up in pine branches, and never absent-mindedly bumped into tree trunks when pursued. They could escape by speeding up or taking evasive action, but they were alarmed, and with good cause, about their fledglings. Many birds had eggs in the nest now. When the babies hatched, how could they be kept safe from a cat who could fly up and perch on the slenderest branch among the thickest leaves? It took a while for the owl to understand. Owl is not a quick thinker. She's a long thinker. It was late in spring, one evening, when she was gazing fondly at her two new owlets, that she saw James flitting by chasing bats, and she slowly thought, This will not do. And softly the owl spread her great gray wings and silently flew after James, her talons opening. The flying tabbies had made their nest in a hole halfway up a big elm above fox and coyote level and too small for raccoons to get in. Thelma and Harriet were washing each other's necks and talking over the day's adventures when they heard a pitiful crying at the foot of the tree. James! Cried Harriet. He was crouching under the bushes all scratched and bleeding, and one of his wings dragged upon the ground. It was the owl, he said, when his sisters had helped him climb painfully up the tree trunk to their home hole. I just escaped. She caught me, but I scratched her, and she let go for a moment. And just then Roger came scrambling into the nest with his eyes round and black and full of fear. She's after me, he cried. The owl! They all washed James's wounds till he fell asleep. Now we know how the little birds feel, said Thelma grimly. Oh, what will James do? Harriet whispered. Will he ever fly again? He'd better not, said a soft, large voice just outside their door. The owl was sitting there. The tabbies looked at one another. They did not say a word till morning came. At sunrise, Thelma peered cautiously out. The owl was gone. "Until this evening," said Thelma. From then on they had to hunt in the daytime and hide in their nest all night, for the owl thinks slowly, but the owl thinks long. James was ill for days and could not hunt at all. When he recovered he was very thin and could not fly much, for his left wing soon grew stiff and lame. He never complained. He sat for hours by the creek, his wings folded, fishing. The fish did not complain either. They never do. One night of early summer the tabbies were all curled in their home hole, rather tired and discouraged. A raccoon family was quarreling loudly in the next tree. Thelma had found nothing to eat all day but a shrew, which gave her indigestion. A coyote had chased Roger away from the wood rat he had been about to catch that afternoon. James's fishing had been unsuccessful. The owl kept flying past on silent wings, saying nothing. Two young male raccoons in the next tree started a fight, cursing and shouting insults. The other raccoons all joined in, screeching and scratching and swearing. "It sounds just like the old alley," James remarked. "Do you remember the shoes?" Harriet asked dreamily. She was looking quite plump, perhaps because she was so small. Her sister and brothers had become thin and rather scruffy. "Yes," James said. "Some of them chased me once." "Do you remember the hands?" Roger asked. "Yes," Thelma said. "Some of them picked me up once, when I was just a kitten." "What did they do, the hands?" Harriet asked. "They squeezed me. It hurt. And the hands person was shouting, 'Wings! Wings! It has wings!' That's what it kept shouting in its silly voice, and squeezing me." "What did you do?" "I bit it," Thelma said, with modest pride. "I bit it, and it dropped me, and I ran back to Mother, under the dumpster. I didn't know how to fly yet." "I saw one today," said Harriet. "What? Hands? A shoes?" said Thelma. "A human being?" said James. "A human being?" Roger said. "Yes," said Harriet. "It saw me too." "Did it chase you? Did it kick you? Did it throw things at you?" "No. It just stood and watched me flying, and its eyes got round, just like ours." "Mother always said," Thelma remarked thoughtfully, "that if you found the right kind of hands, you'd never have to hunt again. But if you found the wrong kind, it would be worse than dogs," she said. "I think this one is the right kind," said Harriet. "What makes you think so?" Roger asked, sounding like their mother. "Because it ran off and came back with a plateful of dinner," Harriet said. "And it put the dinner down on that big stump at the edge of the field, that field where we scared the cows that day, you know. And then it went off quite away and sat down and just watched me. So I flew over and ate the dinner. It was an interesting dinner, like what we used to get in the alley, but fresher. And," said Harriet, sounding like their mother, "I'm going back there tomorrow and see what's on that stump." "You just be careful, Harriet Tabby," said Thelma, sounding even more like their mother.
Okay, Calvin is shy of the camera. He wants to hide his little face. So what did you think about that story, Calvin? Calvin's still kind of scared. He once did find some nice hands. They picked him up and they took him to the SPCA, and then he got adopted. So he knows that there are some nice hands out there, and that they do bring you some plates with some good food on it. He still gets some really good plates of food, and he likes tuna the best. but he's still a little nervous about that plate. I think if Calvin was there, he wouldn't be rushing out the very next morning to see what's on the plate. He would probably wait a little bit longer and watch from a distance. But he wants to listen to the story next week and find out what happens when the little kitties go and see what's on that plate.